Hello, I'm Edmund Mudibo, and welcome to another episode of The Living Legends. In today's episode, we speak to a woman who has had a trailblazing career in different fields. She's been in the handicraft and sports apparel and equipment business before taking up a role in managing philanthropy. Through one of Kenya's oldest trusts that she now chairs, thousands of Kenyans have received an education. She currently serves as the Chancellor of the University of Nairobi. On The Living Legends, we are glad to have the chair of the Rattansi Educational Trust, Dr. Vijoo Rattansi. Karibu sana.
Thank you, Edmund. It's nice to be with you.
Thank you for making time to be with us in Living Legends. And let's start with your early life, education. Where were you born? How was it like growing up?
Not many people know that I have just as rich a heritage of Tanzania as I do of Kenya. I was born on this little island of Zanzibar many years ago in 1948, when it was still Stone Town and Zanzibar. It was paradise growing up there. A tiny little island. Everybody was your family. You sort of walked anywhere, you couldn't misbehave, which was good in a way, because it taught us a lot of things. They taught us to be kind to the less fortunate, and we spoke to the elders with dignity, always with respect, whoever they were. It did not matter whether it was a worker or somebody who owned the business. It made no difference.
And in terms of education, were you in Zanzibar all those years for your early education? What was it like?
It was very nice. We enjoyed school. My primary education was at a convent school called St. Joseph's Convent. And it was here. Now, before I go on to the school, let me go back to being a child. Every Sunday, our parents would take all of us to a home called Valezo, where the aged lived. And we would go there with food and gift items and serve them the food ourselves. We looked after them, their needs, and came back. So to me, this was also the beginning of philanthropy, a foundation that our parents were putting into us. Now I can answer.
And that's interesting, because that seed of philanthropy was actually ingrained and planted in you by your parents very early. Very
early, into all of us.
Were you born into a large family?
Enough. We were 3 sisters sandwiched between 2 brothers, 5 of us. So we all got along. Zanzibar, Stone Town, was a tiny little place. Everybody knew everybody. You couldn't get lost. You never went hungry. If you were at a friend's house, you stayed for lunch. It was very sort of, an extended family all around you. A lot of love and affection from even the neighbors.
And education, were you someone who loved education? What were your favorite subjects like,
Oh, I loved going to school. I did. I was one of those weird ones, as they say, but I loved school. And my favorite subjects were the sciences.
So you could have been a scientist.
Well, I would have been a doctor. If the revolution in Zanzibar hadn't happened.
Oh, I see. Okay. The revolution took place.
Yes, it did.
At what stage in your education or school life, and what was it like in terms of the disruption to the family and everybody else?
Well, I just finished my secondary education, the Cambridge school certificate, and I was going to go to the States to do medicine. And my mother said, well, before you go and meet your elder sister who's married in Nairobi, then come back and go on to the States. So I left Zanzibar on a ship. We loved traveling by ships because these huge liners, you know, when you're young, they have bowls of ice cream. So you can sort of really eat up as much as you want, play tennis and everything. So we got to Tanga. On board, actually, one of the pursers came up and said, there's a little disturbance in Zanzibar. So we didn't, I just said, oh. Then we got on to Tanga, and that's where the papers were awash with the revolution. So I got to Mombasa on the ship, took a train, and came to Kenya and never left.
And tell me, when you were traveling then, were you traveling as family, or it was just you alone to now meet your other relatives in Nairobi?
I was alone.
Alone?
Yes.
Not scared?
No. No, not at all. I'd done this previously with my elder sisters, so I was quite used to it.
Adventurous spirit.
Yes, very adventurous spirit.
And so coming into Kenya then, with all the happenings in Zanzibar then, how long did you stay? Did you get to know what happened to the rest of your family that was behind?
No, the family was fine. They left eventually. I stayed on here, some went on to the UK, some came here, you know. But
And
it was quite an upheaval, not just for us, for a lot of people.
Now, after your high school education, commerce, how did you get into it?
Well,
and was it easy for you, a lady then?
Well, the thing is, I was born up in a family of commerce as well. My father had businesses too there. So I grew up seeing all that, and I must admit, I used to enjoy watching what was happening. And when I came in here then, into Kenya, I sort of, got an opportunity at Italian Handicrafts. So I took it up, and sometime later, the owner said, look, why don't you buy some shares and stay on because you're so good at it. So my family said, all right, we'll do it for you. Would you like to do this? And I said, yes, I don't mind. So that was it.
Together with your late husband, Dr. Hassan Ali Rattansi, you left the business to concentrate on running the Muhammad Ali and Mani Ben Educational Trust.
Yes, now this happened when I married him. I gave up my business, which was a fashion business, and got into the sports business, which was started by my husband. You know, my husband was a sportsman.
Yes, yes.
He played tennis for Kenya, and he was the first KLTA chair just before independence. And as you know, KLTA headquarters are at Nairobi Club.
Yes.
And he was not white, he was Indian. He was not allowed to join the club, but he was the chair. The offices were there, so everyone said, fine, we'll move them over to Parklands or somewhere, or to Gymkhana, where people are allowed. So they changed the laws overnight and said, all right, you all can come in as members.
Establishment of the trust and the vision of the founders. Just getting back to running the Muhammad Ali and Mani Ben Educational Trust. The success, the challenges, the ups and downs through the years, and what you see as the future of that trust. Okay,
let's start from the beginning. My father-in-law one day decided, well, all the children, my husband, all his siblings were born in Nyeri. And when my mother-in-law and when my father-in-law came and mother-in-law to Kenya, there were no roads. They used to walk from Nairobi to Nyeri. So that was from Nairobi to Naivasha, over the Aberdares and into Nyeri. So they lived on the mountains. They lived with the Dorobo, the Kikuyus, whoever were there. There was a little manyata for them. And there was this closeness that grew. That combined with the fact that my father-in-law, when he was like 72, I think, yes, said, Kenya has given me a lot of happiness and my wife. So he called my husband and he said, I want to do something for my country. This is our mother. So can we do something? So my husband, who was a freedom fighter, said education is the best gift. And my father-in-law said, right, I think so too. He was a great follower of Gandhi's as well, I must say, my father-in-law. So that's how he said, fine, so we start an education trust in 1956, this was. So in September 1956 was born the Rattansi Educational Trust. It was actually called the Maniben Muhammad Ali and Maniben Rattansi Educational Trust then. That's how it was born. Now, it was very different to other trusts because whoever started a trust in those days had it for their own communities. But this trust was for everybody. It was 20% African, 20% Ismaili, which is what my husband was, 20% European, 20% Muslim, and 20% Hindus, and whoever else was not included. So that was 100%. It was divided.
And how was the trust empowered in terms of capacity to assist? The spirit is there, but it's...
Okay. He took his prime property, which is where Rattansi Trust is now, and donated that to the trust. And the trust is in perpetuity. So anyway, after independence, things were changed. So the 20% went out, and it said for Kenyans only.
Yes.
That was the first thing they did.
Criteria for applying for support, was the demand very high? What have you observed over the years?
Well, in the beginning, yes, the demand was always there, but as time went on, and in the early periods, we wanted very, very bright students who would come back. The reason was they would come back to Kenya and help, run the country, because my husband and father-in-law could see, my father-in-law said the wave of independence is flowing this way now. And when the British leave us, we will need educated people as well, when my husband said education. So they were sent, I think the first batch of people went out in 1957. And there were about 21 then. All over to England, some went to India, some went to Pakistan, wherever they wanted to study. And some locally too, at the Royal College it was then.
Yes.
So that was it. But today the demand has really grown.
Now, serving on the board of management, BOM, of the Highway Secondary School for a long time, how has it been like? How did you get in? What qualities were they looking for? And that's a boys' school, isn't it?
Yes, but you can be on the board.
Yes.
Gender sensitive.
Yes.
No, my husband was on the board for a long time too, of Highway Secondary School. I think he was there for about 18 years. Then he passed on and they asked me to join, which I did, and I've still been there. And Highway has come places, I must say. In the old days, it used to be in the top 10 schools. Then it went down, but right now, the way it is, we have an amazing headmaster right now who sort of motivates the boys, He talks to them and they get motivated, and we are doing very well in a lot of spheres. But it's a very challenging thing because the enrollment is getting more and more. The infrastructure is not up to it. So, but somehow we manage.
Being Chancellor, 10 years and counting, the University of Nairobi.
Yes.
How is it like?
That has been a great learning experience and a great part of my journey, like all the others have been. KCDF, Siderak, Highway Secondary, so has the university. I've enjoyed it thoroughly, and I've been fortunate enough to go, to go through 2 councils. The first council was the Council of Idli Farah. The second one was Julia Ojiambo, when she was the chair, and the present one, where Miriam Vere is the chair.
So what does it take to be Chancellor? I mean, previously that role was the head of state as a preserve.
Well, they
You
say,
for a long time.
They say you have to be a person of integrity.
So you are.
Well, I hope so.
You certainly are.
And it's an appointment by the president. So what really happens now is the Senate decides, and they choose 5 names which go to KBC, and then from there they go to they pick 3 names and they send it to the Minister for Education, who in turn sends it to the president. And then the president chooses one. So it's still a presidential appointment.
And managing the transition of leadership at the university in conjunction with the council, the dynamics, what have you seen, what has changed?
Well, councils hold a lot of power. Power in the sense they run the university. The Chancellor is just the titular head. I graduate people, I give out degrees on behalf of the university. Those are the powers vested in me, diplomas. And at times when the council has a problem, they come and see me and I guide them the right way. But the university, we have the council who sit and decide, really, together with the Senate and all. But the council is the heart, as is the Senate, as is the Vice Chancellor. But as you know, I've seen since Professor Magoa's time, God rest his soul in peace, we transitioned to Professor Mbithi, and then after Professor Mbithi, it's now Professor Kiama, Stephen Kiama, as the Vice Chancellor. And always these things are very high octane at the University of Nairobi, getting a Vice Chancellor. But I must admit that the Office of the President was very helpful. I have them to thank a lot.
And the current president getting his PhD under your tenure, what was it like? Was he attending class? Was he doing his assignment?
Absolutely, from what I've been told. And I must admit that the day he got his PhD, he sat with all the other students in the front. He did not want any VIP treatment.
Like any other student?
Like any other student. He sat with his colleagues and he says, no, I don't want to sit on the dais. He sat there with them and came when his name was called. He knelt, he took his PhD. To me, I found him a very humble young man. Very humble and honorable. To be able to do that, you must have a lot of humility in you. You must admit.
If I recall, you said your parents, when you're growing up, taking you, getting involved in charity work. But now, one would ask, what's the difference between charity and philanthropy? Are they the same thing?
Well,
or to what extent are they different?
Charity is when you come to me, and Edmund, and you say, we need some help in this place, and I write you a check and give it to you. That's charity, giving. Philanthropy is when you're involved in it. To me, that is how it is.
And can you nurture it? Or is it just because you've got extra you give out of the excess of abundance that you have?
You do not have to be rich to be a philanthropist. You can be earning as little as you are, but just give a little something to someone. That is philanthropy, and keep on doing it. You take a person, a child, you look after the child, and let the child go through school and what have you. school, university if you can, because once the child goes through school, having paid fees, not having to, you know, stay at home for non-payment, the sky is the limit. One thing I know, our Kenyans are very hungry for education, and that is such a good sign, and they're brilliant. You go anywhere in the country, you'll find Kenyans working in this country, all over, outside, into the world. How many Kenyans are working overseas, and they've done brilliantly. So we are a nation of brilliant people. We just have to tap.
What don't we know about you?
Before you know about me, I want to go back to the university thing and to tell you that, you know, there were 2 satellites launched by the University of Nairobi. One was in 2016 in Japan through UNOS and JAXA, and one this year.
2023.
Yes, which was all over. So this is something amazing. And like I said, our children are so brilliant. This is all their work, and our professors. We have some of the best brains in the world in Kenya. Let's make use of it. This is our heritage. This is ours to keep. And don't ask me if the trust will go on. It will. It's in perpetuity. Yes. So it's deeply entrenched, and I know my son will carry on, then his son, daughter, theirs. So we have hope there, a lot of hope.
We're so glad you could make time to join us today. It has been a pleasure speaking to Dr. Vijoo Rattansi. She's the Chancellor of the University of Nairobi, chaired the Board of Management of the Highway Secondary School, and served in other institutions that are in philanthropy. We thank Dr. Rattansi for sharing her insights on philanthropy and education management in the country. Thank you very much, Dr. Vijoo Rattansi. I'm Edmund Mudibo, and thank you for watching. Stay tuned.